So here we are at Home Depot starting our next project, which is helping out a vet. We're building steps up to his trailer because the trailer steps are way too steep for him. He has a tumor removed, I believe, cancer, army vet, and he's also going through divorce. So his life is having problems, but we are going to help him out. And coming up Friday, we have a whole bunch of friends coming to build this deck, and that's our next video. Stay tuned. 10 degrees, it's a cold one.
I first heard about Kirby on Facebook from his ex-wife. She posted a request for help for someone to come and build some steps because he had a brain tumor which was diagnosed back in 2014 that could not be operated on. It was too embedded in his brain, and ever since then his left side's becoming weaker and weaker, and he's not able to go up the steps because they're too steep of his RV. And so she asked for help, and I have volunteered to build this steps so that he can get in and out of his trailer with no problem.
This is what we have. We've got to move this insulation or put it everywhere, even considering on that pop out. And this is the stairs we're building. And here's the material. Let's get started.
Kirby is a 12-year veteran in the Army, and he served 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Shortly after his discharge, he got a job at the Juvenile Detention Center in St. Anthony, Idaho. There, he also worked another 12 years in service to our community, helping the youth.
So I got all the treads. There's the post there for the bottom. I like to cut these off when they're cracked so it doesn't progress all the way through for a nice new one. I was just told that Kirby is not doing that good. It's kind of a downhill slope, so it's kind of somber here. We have a lot of family, but I'm gonna still go. We'll get this built.
So on January the 11th, Charlotte posted on Facebook that they needed some help with building steps for their RV, and they requested some references to some carpenters to do that. When I read it, I said, hey, I will give my services for free. She responded back on Tuesday, really, what can you do? We discussed the plans. And then on Wednesday, I went over to check everything out. I measured the steps. I noticed that it was starting to get really cold. Their pipes were frozen. I lit the propane underneath the trailer to try to unthaw the pipes. And I had a husky with me that looked just like Kirby and Charlotte's husky. And my husky came in and was loving on Kirby, jumped on his lap. We talked about dogs. You could tell he was, yes, in pain. He talked about his left side being weak and how he'd greatly appreciate these steps. And so we insisted on building the steps on Friday because my main job, I work Monday through Thursday, and it'd be a great time for me to do that. And so that is today. It is Friday, building these steps. A little more about Kirby is, even though he was in severe pain with migraines and his left side getting weaker and weaker, he continued to work at the Juvenile Detention Center. His boss even pulled him in the side. His name is Cody, and Cody said, you know, Kirby, you already have time built up for retirement. You don't need to be here any longer. But Kirby had been in a very toxic relationship with his wife, and he's been fighting for divorce for 2 years. And in this time, there was many mean things done and said to him with loved ones and people he thought was his friends. Anyways, he told Cody, he's like, I have to do this job. This is where I can get away from everything, and I want to continue to work. And so he worked clear up to December, even though he had all of these struggles. And in essence, giving service is what kept him going. And that basically makes him the poster child for Proxy Score, because he lost himself in service, and he knew through basically 28 years of service that he has done with his life previously, he knew exactly that would give him happiness and gave him hope. And actually, that's exactly what he told Cody. He says, this gives me purpose. If I went home to retire, I wouldn't live that much longer. And so Cody's like, all right, keep coming. And so he did.
So this is how I built it. Did a little notch there because it's sitting outside. So I have the family here to talk about Kirby. I guess let's get started with Mom. What was it like raising him?
Kirby was mischievous and busy.
And very busy, huh?
He was curious. And he ended up being but he was a trusting soul and sometimes very naive. And that could work against him because people kind of took advantage of that and made fun of him a little bit. He'd get hurt. As he grew, most of his friends were girls. In junior high, I asked him about a couple of guys that I thought were his friends, and he'd say, not really. He said they just want to take advantage of girls, and that bothered him, so he didn't do much with that type. And Kirby had a very tender heart, and he could see people's pain and would try to give a lend to it and see what he could do to raise it. He went to work at the Good Samaritan as a janitor, and he would be going down the hall doing his thing, maybe mopping a floor or something, and one of the patients would drop a blanket, or not on purpose. And he'd go to pick it up and give it back to him, and he got in trouble for it. He was informed that was not his job. Mm-hmm. Well, he immediately wanted to quit that job, and his dad told him, you're in the middle of the lake and there isn't another canoe near. You better wait until you get either to another canoe or to the shore before you quit your job. And so he got to looking, and he found out that he could, what do you become when you're?
A CNA.
He worked to become a CNA.
Awesome.
And so he could help the patients, not just clean up.
I think people who are CNAs, certified nursing assistants, and nurses, I'd probably say the CNA, because they're the ones that assist the nurses. They're the ones that have to do all the dirty jobs, and it's just like a dental hygienist with the doctor. They're the ones that spend so much time with the patients. And that right there tells you what kind of person he was, that he took on a job like that and he wanted it. I was a CNA when I was going through college, and so I firsthand, I know exactly what people go through for that, and the people you help. So CNAs can do some amazing things. What was his favorite hobby?
Oh, he loved to run, and I think he liked music like his dad. His dad loved music, and I think Kirby all the kids took that on somewhat.
We would text once in a while. He would, "How's your day going?" And I'd say, "It's a devil in a blue dress day." And that's a song my dad played growing up when he was not in a good mood or had a bad day. If Mitch Ryder came on and Devil in the Blue Dress started blaring, and if it played twice, stay clear.
But if he turned the record over and played the other side, it was really stay clear.
But that was Kirby's, and he'd tell me a song, and I usually my response was always "Devil in a Blue Dress," and "But you're not," but I am. So yeah, music is a big part of our family.
Good. What did he have any nicknames?
Kirby Derb.
Kirby Derb?
Yep.
Who
Kirby
gave that
Derb,
to him?
Kirby. Well, he did. Kirby the vacuum, because he could eat like nobody else.
Have a hollow leg.
And then he had an aunt in Portland that called him Kirby Brumfield. That was just her name.
That was just her name?
Well, when he was a teenager, he was our stud muffin.
Yeah, he was Stud Muffin.
Because he liked to dress for the girls. He liked to make sure his hair was done, and he wore the mirrored sunglasses. He still did. And he was hot stuff. He was a stud muffin. He was.
What would he be remembered for? Like,
His tender heart.
Tender hearts get us in a lot of trouble sometimes. Service. We grew up doing service. We were always helping the widows in the neighborhood. Always. There was always a lawn to be mowed, snow to be shoveled, projects to be done, houses to be scraped. We were always, as a family, doing service, and I think he is one that has taken off and run with that too, and tries to help others, wants everybody to be happy. That was his thing. Everybody deserves to be happy. He wasn't all the time, and that was a struggle, but he always tried to leave people
Better than he found them.
Yeah.
I think that's one detriment to society, is that electronics is becoming so huge and we're getting away from that social interaction. When we were younger, we would go help. We'd think of other people. We'd shovel snow when it came out. I mean, I know exactly what that was like. And then nowadays, everyone's just stuck on a phone, and it's hard for them to get that social interaction. So I think that definitely that service between that generation and now is totally, they're missing the boat, and that's one thing that we would love to see more of. Do you have any funny stories you'd like to talk about, Kirby?
When we lived over on 8th Street, we'd have my dad and his wife. She was my stepmom, but we didn't call her that. Dad and Mom lived right close, and on Sunday we'd bring them over for dinner, and we'd usually set up a table in the middle of the living room. And sometimes some of the kids would be there and whatever, and it could be a Christmas dinner, a birthday dinner, or just Sunday dinner. And when Bessie was there, she'd had stroke, so she was in a wheelchair. And he would get up and walk around the table, and he'd get on his knees by her wheelchair, which made him as tall as, or taller than she was, sitting in her wheelchair. And he'd play airplane with her pills and tease her, and she would giggle and laugh, but she would take her pills.
Because she could be a pill about taking her pills. She was difficult. So he made it a game.
So, Mom, what did you think of when Kirby said that he wanted to join the military?
Scared to death. Because, you think the worst, of course. The world isn't a kind place even then when it started, but the world isn't a kind place, and it scared me. Silly. But I also knew I had to let go. I couldn't make him not go.
Yeah, sometimes we have drives in us that we have to do it. And sometimes people that are onlookers, they're like, what are you doing? I like the saying that says, don't judge other people because they're just making the same decision that you would have made in the similar circumstances. And so, when you hear of stories of people and such, I always like to step back and say, well, wait a second, what's the whole story? And there's just some people that have this drive.
Kirby wanted to be in the military. He was going to go to the military before he served his mission. And he got talked to by friends and family and everybody, and he decided to go on his mission. And so he went, he came back home, and he wanted to go in the Army.
And he still had that. All right, Charlotte, so when did you first meet Kirby? What's your story?
Funny enough, he walked into our assisted living facilities that I was running with my family. And I had just gotten there, and I rolled out of bed, put my ponytail on top of my head, and put my junky clothes on and went to work, not knowing that I would meet anybody, you know. And he walked in and was taking care of Elmer and his patients, Elmer Parkin, and from there we just started a really great friendship.
How did it progress?
Clicked. I don't know how to explain. It just clicked. There were outside circumstances that, you know, I didn't even think about dating him. I was still in high school when I met him. But he and I are just really good friends. And then once I started getting into college and I had graduated and stuff, he had asked me out. We went on our first date to Mesa Falls and just talked. Everything was just easy. It was flowing.
Let's talk about a couple more things. What was, we don't have to get too deep, I guess, but what was a struggle that Kirby may have had, and how did he get out of it?
His struggle, I think, was trying to fit in, to be appreciated or feel like he was cared for. And
That his opinion mattered.
Yeah. And how he got out of it, how he did everything else, his service. Because, you know, if you give service to people that are genuinely happy about it, they give you love and smiles and humor, and that helped him, I think, get through it.
A simple thank you can help a lot, and especially for people who give. All right, is there anything that you would like to share that we've not talked about so far?
He was selfless.
I don't know what took Kirby apart from his dad and I. There was a while he didn't talk to us, and I've not known what we did wrong. But I tried not to push him because, you know, it was made evident that you couldn't question him a lot about things that was like attacking him. And so when we would, you know, I'd try to keep it light, show I cared about him and things. And you know, one day I got a Mother's Day card that he actually sat and wrote in, and I cried like a baby. That was a beautiful gift. But I think my most treasured gift from Kirby is moving into my driveway the last month of his life. And it was like a whirlwind. We had busy times, but there was lots of loving. They took care of Gigi. They helped him. Well, they drove in from Mammon one night and helped me get him up off the floor and in his chair. They gave him that little lap weighted blanket, and then they gave him a big weighted blanket. They found out his favorite drink and ordered a case of that for him. And so, you know, they didn't ignore stepdad. They treated him like he was a real live living human being, and me the same. Charlotte designed the planters out on my porch, and Kirby built them. That was my Christmas. So lots of joy, lots of hugs, and I will treasure that for the rest of my life.
Teresa, how about you?
We had probably the closest relationship of all his siblings. We kept in touch a lot, phone calls, texts. He had a lot of down times, a lot of struggles with his marriage and not feeling accepted, and come home and nobody wanted to talk to him. And that was hard. And there were times where he talked about, I just want to be done. I'm going to go be done. And we would talk. It's like, we can't be done. We're not done. And keep going, keep pushing. Better's coming. When he was diagnosed with the cancer and didn't know what was going to happen and stuff, we had a lot of brother-sister talks and what he wanted, and he was scared at first because he didn't know. Nobody knew. He was sad that his wife didn't believe him that he had this tumor. It broke his heart that she thought he was just doing things for attention, and that's not his nature. He's very quiet and very private about what he went around and did for other people. He did not need or want that pat on the back, but every time he would talk about his day, they took it as he was bragging, and that hurt him, because that's not, you have to release. People need to talk about what they do during the day, and emotions and feelings and good days and bad days. It was a privilege and an honor to take care of him those last days, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you see that a lot with the servicemen as well, is there's just some things you just don't talk about. But yet, that's probably one reason why some distance came between, you and him, through life, is there's just some things he didn't want to talk about. But on the other hand, I think that he definitely loved and appreciated the people who watched out for him and did give him that. So that brings me to Charlotte, is why did you come back into his life and help?
Well, we have a 20-year-old daughter together.
Mm-hmm.
And when she was 17, she was struggling with suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I had learned that he had gotten the diagnosis of the brain cancer, and I never stopped loving him. We always communicated our divorce as a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. We were very young. Anyway, he went off to war and lost contact, and I feel like I forced him to turn over his rights so that we would be able to have a family and not have to go back and forth from Germany and, just be able to be settled. And when she was 17, she was really struggling. And so I got in contact with him, and I had talked to him when his dad had passed away. I'd called the house and talked to him. So we had some contact throughout the years, but it was nothing more than I'm really sorry or hope you're well, or, but my heart sank when he found out that he had the brain cancer. So after he and Ume had met again, the friendship ensued. It's just able to just talk and text every once in a while, check in on each other, check on Ume, see how she's doing, and I would have him help me with her. And then I saw him, and he was so dark. And he and I sat in the Olive Garden parking lot, in the Olive Garden dining room, and for 4 hours we just talked. And there was a lot of darkness in his life, but he never showed it to anybody. He always foreshadowed it with love and gratitude and service, and he was always honorable. He was always pushing to do what was right, until it came to himself. And when he came to doing for himself, he didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And he was in a tumultuous relationship. He still cared about her, about his children, about his stepchildren, but it was just not a good situation for any of them. His son had asked him to, stop the fighting, and so Kirby went to his wife and said, "We're done," and he had moved out, and he was thinking about moving into his car that he had at the time, and just trying to figure things out because he didn't feel like he could afford anything. And my parents offered him sanctuary and time, so he moved in, and we just were able to build our friendship again. And from there, we were able to heal with each other and be able to really find joy. Mm-hmm. The last 10 months we found joy.
The darkness went away.
Love for family, people, more above than his own. But you can tell by how he gave so much. It seemed like he gave so much that he couldn't, receive or allow himself to receive.
I don't know if you're still recording.
I am.
He, up at St. Anthony, there was a girl that hit him in the head. And this was after he'd been diagnosed with brain cancer. And sometimes the kids did get violent. And of course, when you hit one of those, it's an instant felony. Mm-hmm. But he fought for her. And fought for her. He went to the judge. And I don't know all the circumstances, but it ended up that her programs got changed and everything. And while she wasn't going to get off scot-free, she had a chance at life. Mm-hmm. Because he fought for her, even though she hit him in the head. Mm-hmm. And then all of them were brokenhearted because they'd work with a young girl. And she got out and she committed suicide. All of them were just devastated. But that's the saddest thing they said, because they'd work with those kids and try to help them have some self-esteem. And then they go back to where they came from, and it's taken from them.
And when you do a job like that, you don't do it just because it's just a paycheck. You do it because you love it. Mm-hmm. You have to, honestly. I would go to funerals and I would see a life sketch last 15 minutes to sum up 60 years, and it drove me nuts. I'm just like, why would there be... Why, you know what I mean? There needs to be more than just a life sketch. And that's also another reason why I decided to do this Proxy Score, is it would help document and keep this life legacy that people can refer back to. And oftentimes the good things are forgotten. The small little things that meant so much are forgotten. And so hopefully I can capture a little bit of that in here and to inspire others to, in essence, do what's right for others. So
I'm not going to tell anybody that any of my kids were perfect. I'm not, so where would they get it?
yeah.
And I can't walk through his moccasins and experience all that he's had experienced. But I don't believe he deserved the treatment he got.
Before and after his death.
Thank you for your time. If you need anything, let me know. Also, just like in the insurance business and financial sales service, if you know anyone who needs my services, feel free to give my number out. I want to do a service project once a month, and I want to promote people and their legacies. So feel free to pass that along.
Do you have a card?
I don't. I have a website.
I'll give you his number.
Okay.
Yeah, she has my number. Thanks a lot. So let's sum this all up. Kirby Neberker grew up in a time where electronics and video games has even started. I guess we had the Atari and InnoVision, I think is what it was called. But that came later. We spent our time being outside, thinking of others, helping one another. At a young age, he learned about service. And that is how he patterned his life. Working in as a CNA, working being a soldier, and then coming out of the armed services and going into the juvenile detention center helping young kids. His whole life was devoted in service. That is where he found his joy. That is where he found his purpose. And in this time, maybe it's jealousy, I don't know the whole story, but loved ones turned their back against him, one calling his tumor and cancer a farce, another one saying, I'll filter this out, lack of better words, I will desecrate your ashes after you die. This crushed him. This made him in this dark place which his family talked about. His family came together, even an ex-wife, and helped him and gave him more purpose and got him out of this rut. There he was able to fight until the end. Kirby, you will be well missed.